He wasn't performing. There were no cameras following him around a stage, no choreography, no crowd of thousands screaming his name. It was just a hotel room, a half-open suitcase, and a small camera sitting on a table while Jimin folded clothes and talked to himself in a voice so quiet you almost had to lean in to hear it. And somehow, it became one of the most watched pieces of BTS content released this entire year. Not because something dramatic happened, not because there was a revelation or a surprise guest or a major announcement hidden somewhere in the footage, but because there was one moment, lasting maybe 4 seconds, that made an entire fandom stop completely still. And once you see it, you'll understand exactly why. This channel exists for the kind of army who watches a 6-minute video 3 times in a row, not because they missed anything the first time, but because something keeps pulling them back and they can't quite explain why. If that's you, you're in the right place. And the last part of what we're going to talk about today, the part most people brushed past because it looked like nothing, might be the part that stays with you the longest. June 7th, 2026. Part of BTS Festa, the group's annual anniversary celebration leading up to their 13th debut date on June 13th. Big Hit released 7 videos simultaneously on Bangtan TV and Weverse, 1 for each member, all exactly the same length, 6 minutes and 13 seconds, a deliberate number, a tribute to the date. The series was called Normal Log. The concept was simple. No scripts, no production crew following them around, just each member, a fixed camera, and whatever their life actually looked like at that moment on the Arirang World Tour. Jimin filmed his in a hotel room. He had just finished a show in Tampa, Florida. The next stop was El Paso, and between those 2 cities, in whatever space of time existed between performing in front of tens of thousands of people and getting back on a tour bus, Park Jimin sat down in front of a camera and packed a suitcase. That's it. That's the whole premise. And yet, by the end of that same day, his normal log had more views than any of the other 6. Let's actually walk through what happens in the video, because the way it unfolds matters. It starts with Jimin already mid-task, not a dramatic entrance, not an introduction, he's just already there, sitting on the floor with his suitcase open in front of him, pulling out clothes that had apparently been thrown in haphazardly after the show. He starts refolding them, methodically, quietly. He talks as he does it, but not for the camera, more like someone who talks to fill silence when they're alone. Little observations, a comment about a shirt being wrinkled, something about how he can never remember which bag he put his charger in. And here's the first thing that fans started noticing. This version of Jimin, the one who mutters to himself while doing laundry tasks, who doesn't fix his hair before checking what he looks like on the camera screen, who makes a small, frustrated sound when a sleeve won't fold the way he wants, is a version that almost never gets shown. Not because it's being hidden, but because there's usually no reason for a camera to catch it. The Jimin the world usually sees is precise, controlled, every movement considered. Even in behind-the-scenes content, there's typically still an awareness of being watched that shapes how he presents himself. In this video, that awareness is mostly gone, and the fans who have followed him for years recognized it immediately. There's a thread on X posted by @JiminObserved that, within 48 hours of the normal log being released, had been quoted and reposted across almost every major BTS fan account in existence. The thread started like this. Jimin's normal log is the first time in years that I feel like I'm actually seeing him, and not a version of him that knows he's being seen. What followed was a 40-post breakdown of specific moments in the video, frame by frame in some cases. The way he sits, slightly slouched, one knee up, completely unbothered about posture. The way he speaks, not projecting, not performing softness, just genuinely soft because that's what his voice does when no one is listening for it. The way he occasionally glances at the camera lens, not to check how he looks, but almost like he's checking whether the camera is still on, as if he keeps forgetting it's recording. He keeps looking at the camera like it's a pet that wandered into the room, one reply said. That reply got 80,000 likes. But none of that, not the soft voice, not the slouch, not the relatable chaos of a half-packed suitcase, is actually the moment that made this video go viral. That came about 4 minutes in. Jimin reaches into a small toiletry bag and pulls out what appears to be a supplement. He looks at it briefly, pops it in his mouth, and swallows it dry. Completely casual, the way you take a vitamin you've taken 100 times before. And then his face does something. It starts as a slight frown, the kind of frown that happens when something tastes wrong but you're not sure how wrong yet. Then his eyes widen, just a fraction. Then there's a sharp exhale through his nose, the universal human expression for "that was a mistake." Then he picks up the packet again and actually reads it this time. High concentration vitamin C, the kind that's specifically designed to be dissolved in water first, not to be taken directly. He reads the dosage instructions, he reads them again, he sets the packet down very slowly, and then he looks directly at the camera, not performing, not doing a bit, and makes a face that can only be described as the physical manifestation of quiet regret. The GIF was made within 2 hours of the video going live. By midnight, it was on every platform. By the following morning, it was being used as a reaction image in conversations that had nothing to do with BTS. Someone used it in response to a post about accidentally replying all to a company email. Someone else used it under a tweet about checking the price of something before adding it to cart. It transcended fandom. That almost never happens. Here's what makes that moment more interesting than just a funny clip, though. Most performers, most people who have spent years being observed and documented, develop a reflex. When something embarrassing or unexpected happens in front of a camera, the reflex kicks in. You laugh, you make it a bit, you shape it into something watchable because that's what you do when you know you're being recorded. Jimin didn't do that. He just sat with it, quietly. For a full 3 or 4 seconds, he didn't perform a reaction. He just had one. The processing time was real. The mild grimace was real. The slow, resigned setting down of the packet was real. And that 3 to 4 second window of genuine, unmanaged human reaction in a video that is technically official content released by Big Hit is something that fans found almost startling in its honesty. At first, this detail seemed small, a funny supplement moment, nothing more, until fans started pulling up other moments, older ones, and a pattern started forming that wasn't about the vitamin C at all. Go back to 2018. There's a clip from a Bon Voyage episode where BTS is in Malta, and the members are given some free time to do whatever they want. Most of them pair up immediately. Jimin ends up alone for a stretch of the afternoon, walking around a market, and there's a moment where a camera catches him when he clearly doesn't know he's being filmed. He's looking at something, a display of some kind, and his expression is completely unguarded, not neutral, not performing calm, just genuinely, privately absorbed in whatever he's looking at. There's a small smile that comes and goes. He touches something on the display lightly with his fingertip. Fans have talked about that clip for years, not because anything happens in it, but because of the feeling it gives, the sense of catching someone in a moment that belongs entirely to them. Jimin's normal log has that same quality, stretched across 6 minutes and 13 seconds. But there's one specific detail in the normal log that connects to something even older than 2018. At the very beginning of the video, before the suitcase packing starts, there's a brief shot of the room. It lasts maybe 2 seconds, and on the desk behind where Jimin is about to sit, there's a small stack of papers, looks like printed set lists or maybe schedule sheets, and sitting on top of them, almost out of frame, is a single sticky note. The handwriting on it isn't readable in the footage, but the color is distinctive, a very specific shade of pale green that ARMY recognized immediately because it matches the sticky notes Suga has been photographed using in studio settings going back years. There's an entire fan archive of his studio desk photos organized by year, and the pale green square notes appear in almost all of them. No one confirmed what the note said,
No one confirmed it was from Suga, but a fan account dedicated to tracking small continuity details across all BTS content at Minutia Matters posted a side-by-side comparison within 6 hours. The pale green square in Jimin's hotel room, the pale green squares on Suga's studio desk. Same shade, same size, same slightly curled edge that happens when sticky notes get humid. The post had a simple caption, "I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying," it currently has over 300,000 likes. What makes Jimin's normal log feel important isn't just that it was relatable or funny or rare in its unguarded quality, though it was all of those things. It's what it represents in the larger arc of where Jimin is right now. Think about the timeline. 3 years of military service, a period where the version of himself the public knew essentially went offline. No stages, no fan cams, no V-Lives. The presence that ARMY had built their understanding of him around simply wasn't there. When you disappear for that long, not by choice, not as a creative decision, but because a system required it, something has to recalibrate when you come back. The relationship between a performer and their audience has to find its shape again. That process isn't instant, and it isn't always comfortable. What the normal log shows is someone who has found that shape again, but differently than before. Not with more performance, with less. There's a confidence in being unguarded on camera that is actually harder to achieve than being polished. It requires trusting that the thing you actually are, the person who mispacks vitamins and talks to himself while doing tasks no one is watching, is enough, more than enough. And somewhere between Tampa and El Paso, sitting on a hotel room floor with a suitcase and a pale green sticky note just barely visible in the background, Jimin demonstrated that trust completely. There's one more thing. Near the end of the video, about 5 minutes and 40 seconds in, Jimin finishes packing, zips the suitcase, and just sits for a moment. The room is quiet, the camera is still running, he's not doing anything. And then, very quietly, almost to the suitcase more than to anyone in particular, he says something. His voice is low enough that the words aren't fully clear. Some fans have transcribed it as, "Okay, we're ready." Others hear something slightly different. The fan translation on Weverse rendered it simply as, "all right." But what's not in dispute is what happens right after he says it. He smiles. Not a big smile, not a camera smile, the kind of small, private smile that happens when someone says something to themselves and then finds, unexpectedly, that it's true. That moment has been gifted, screenshotted, turned into wallpapers, analyzed in threads, and quietly saved to the camera rolls of more phones than anyone could count. Not because it's dramatic, not because anything big happened, but because it looked exactly like someone who had been through something long and heavy, setting it down, not with ceremony, not with announcement, but simply deciding to move forward. A packed suitcase, a quiet room, a small smile to no one in particular. That was enough. There's a version of Jimin that exists in HD fan cams and magazine covers and performances that stop time. That version is extraordinary and everyone knows it. But there's this other version, the one that shows up in 6-minute hotel room videos, that swallows vitamin C directly and immediately regrets it, that talks to himself while doing tasks no one is watching, and somehow that version hits differently. Maybe because it's the version that doesn't need anything from you, doesn't need applause or validation or attention, just exists quietly in a hotel room somewhere between Tampa and El Paso, packing a bag and figuring out what comes next. The question worth sitting with isn't whether Jimin meant to show us this version of himself. The question is, now that you've seen it, does the other version, the one on stage in front of 80,000 people, feel any different to you? Because for a lot of fans who watched this video, something shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way that's easy to describe, just a small private shift, like understanding something you already knew, but more fully than before. If you noticed something in the normal log that didn't get covered here, put it in the comments. The most interesting observations about Jimin almost always come from the people who have been quietly paying attention for years, and this video gave them a lot to work with.